Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of 712 More Things to Write About. First of all, I want to wish everyone a happy New Year's Day. Can't believe we're already in 2016. So, I really liked this prompt because this prompt actually involved a bit of research. It was write a poem in the voice of Sylvia Plath on antidepressants. And the name started to ring a bell, and I was like, hang on a minute, where have I heard this name from? And then I realised on another video where I was talking about stimulus, so using other authors and poets, and you can use their work to respond to, and I had that creative writing lesson back at college where they talked about this anthology where all these famous poets were like responding to each other's poems, which was really cool and a really good way to fight writer's block. And then I realised, hang on a minute, I did a stimulus piece on this person, bless her, and for some reason, I don't know why, but I thought her surname was Path, and I don't know if that was because that was the way it was written in the book, or if on the day I just must have been word blind to the L. But yes, so it's the same. She did the hanging tree. That was one of her poems, and that was one of the ones I responded to. So I'm going to first off read my poem out, and once again, if you want to have a go, feel free to have a go. I did do a bit of research, and afterwards I'll tell you a bit about what I found out about Sylvia, and I'll also talk a bit about how her poems, because I read some of her poems, how her poems inspired mine. So I'll read mine out first. Two children's voices melt through my bedroom walls, like the moon's white light that whispers to me through the gap in my curtains. Please don't cry, mother. Please don't cry, they call. But they cannot reach me, for in my hand I have pulled a blue and green pill from a brown bottle. They are the miniature ships that will deliver me my freedom. As the salt soothes my heavy tongue, and I think of the salt buried deep in those hills, I too want to be like those hills, tranquil. No need to be grave. Life makes all of us slaves. It is time to sleep now, so I shall take my bow. Do not wait for me to wake, for in the harsh amber of morning, my mask will surely break. So that was the poem I came up with, and when I was doing a bit of research about Sylvia, I learnt that she struggled with depression throughout her life, but she was also a really intelligent woman. She went to an only girls' college back in America where she used to live, and she managed to win a scholarship, and she used that to move to England, and she went to the University of Cambridge, and that's like one of the most prestigious universities you can get into, so that was a really good achievement for her. And obviously she wrote a novel called The Bell Jar, and I can't remember if the reception was good or not, but she had a real passion for poetry, and she married Ted Hughes, who was a British poet, and they had two children together, and I can't remember if they eventually divorced, but they were together, and it was really sad reading about, like, obviously she was only 30 when she committed suicide, and a lot of her poems and a lot of the critics say about her poems that it was like a cry for help, and I really got the sense of that when I was reading them. So first off, in my poem where I use about the voices melting through the walls, that was kind of inspired by, I can't remember which poem it was in, but she mentioned melting, and I couldn't remember, it might have been voices as well, but I really liked that use of the word melt. It was something quite eerie about it. It's almost like it was penetrating the shield she put up around herself, and it's and the whole connotation of white came from tulips, which, if you want to have a read, it's a really good poem of hers. You should definitely give it a go. That was about, she had nurses who used to come and obviously care for her when she was having a bad period, and like a bad episode of her depression, and there was a lot of imagery of like purity, and she was like comparing herself almost like to a nun, and I got the sense that she was bedbound and her medicine was allowing her to escape, so she was happy, she was at peace. And then it's like, I think it's the nurse, they put these red tulips down, and I imagine it's like by her bedside or something, and the whole tone of the poem just changes and she's really angry, and it's almost like those vibrant flowers are reminding her that she's still alive and she's still trapped. So it was quite an emotional poem to read, but I really, it was a really good poem. Blue and Green, in one of her other poems, she talked about those colours, and in Blackberrying, which was like, it's quite a pastoral poem, it's like about the countryside, and that gave me the inspiration of the hills. And I used salt because she used that as like a sense of taste. She talked about salt a lot in her poems. What else? Obviously her two children. All of her poems, or the poems that I read of her, they were all in first person, which obviously made it quite personal to her. So that kind of inspired me to obviously continue in her voice. I felt she would have wrote a poem in first person. And the bit about the brown bottle and the ships, in one of her poem, I can't remember if it was Ariel, she talks about like a messenger, like one of those little bottles you get, like a messenger bottle with a ship stuck inside. So that gave me the inspiration to, because I just believe, rather than the stigma idea of like how antidepressants, for some people it doesn't help them, it just makes them worse. For me, I imagine that for Sylvia, they would have offered her an escape, it would have helped her be at peace, and that was inspired by the Tulips poem, where she was just bedbound but she was happy. And the Amber of Morning, that was inspired by Ariel, because she does this beautiful sentence about, I think it was almost like a red eye, like a cauldron eye, and I think she's talking about the sunlight. So it's like when morning comes, she's gonna have to go back to everyday life. And the last thing I want to say is that there was, with the critics about the poems, there was, they talked about how she seemed to really struggle with like everyday life, like the drudgery of everyday life. So that inspired me to say, you know, life makes all of us slaves. And they reckon she used to get up at dawn, she used to write, she would then get her children ready for school, drop them off to school, and then she'd be back and she'd just do house chores. And I think it was that repetitiveness that just eventually made her lose her battle, because she was like trapped. And obviously back then she would have been viewed, I can't remember the actual time, but I can't remember if it was 50s or 60s, but she would have been viewed as, you know, housewife. And so yeah, but I really enjoyed doing this poem, and if you want to give it a go, feel free to have a go. I could go on and on about Sylvia. It was really interesting researching her, so thank you for watching, and I have another prompt that I've done, so I'll do that one today too. Thank you, and Happy New Year.